Hi there, friends. We'll go ahead and get our lab at home started now. As always, we kind of do the behavior code at the beginning, and then we will introduce our special guest. This is going to be a really cool one. So as always, our learning process is all about respect for ourselves, each other, and our world. We ask you all to show respect by using kind language and appropriate words in the chat box, as this is a program for everyone. As my friend Max said, he's moderating the chat and can disable the chat function for individual users if that's needed. I don't think it will be. That said, it's always okay to disagree or to share your feelings. We welcome all ideas that are founded in respect, and we invite everyone to do the same in this online space. So when we have the lab on site, we encourage our learners to leave their questions and ideas, but it's a little harder to do in this virtual space. I'm still going to ask you all plenty of questions and hope you will share your ideas and your own questions as much as possible in the chat. So let's go ahead and get to our our project today, and of course introduce our very special guest. With us today we have local entomologist, author, and senior science editor for Verdant Word, Dr. Eleanor Spicer-Rice.
Hey everybody.
Hi there, Eleanor. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We are so excited to get to ask you a little bit about what it's like to be an entomologist. I know we have some specific questions that were sent in by some of our viewers, and if any of our viewers have any other questions, if we have time, we would love to answer some of those questions, so be sure and put those in the chat box for us to get to when we can. We're going to start off with just a few questions that I had for Dr. Eleanor, and then we'll go to some viewer questions, and then we've got a really fun project that we're going to do together that's going to help us out with some experiments in the coming weeks. So I'm going to go ahead with my first question. You guys ready? All right, so you are an entomologist, right? And I'm actually going to ask all of you in the chat, do we know what an entomologist is? Before we ask Dr. Eleanor, have we heard of that before? Entomology. Yeah, what's an entomologist? Or what they do, what they study. Ooh, someone who studies insects, studies bugs. Yeah, oh my gosh, there's so many of you who know what that is. That's awesome, a bug scientist. I like that. So we have, Dr. Eleanor is our bug scientist here today. And we've been using kind of the word bug and insect interchangeably, but I know that I've been using bug a lot for the reason of it applies to something else besides just insects. Can you tell us a little bit about what is a bug? What that covers?
Right. So there is a type of insect called a bug. It's a certain type of insect, like a stink bug is actually, scientists, their common name is bug. But we use bug also to say anything. I mean, some people call spiders bugs, and they're not even insects. So a lot of people use the word bug for anything that crawls, but entomologists usually just use bug when we're talking about true bugs, which are this type of bug called hemipterans. Assassin bugs, leaf-footed bugs, those are all true bugs.
Very nice. And for our purposes, bug might also cover something like spiders, which are arachnids. Right. It might also cover maybe even worms and snails, other kinds of land invertebrates, maybe.
Critters.
Critters. That's the other scientific term. I love that.
That's right.
So Dr. Eleanor, what is your specialty, and how did you first become interested in bugs?
So my specialty is social insects, and those are insects that live in colonies like ants, bees, and wasps. And I first became interested in bugs, like many of you, I think, when I was little. Somebody just mentioned that they call them, Max said he calls them crawlies, which is another. So I first became interested in bugs when I was little, walking around my backyard. And I'm from North Carolina, which is where many of us are. And it's a wonderful place to be interested in bugs because we have some of the richest diversity of insects on Earth. But I was interested in all creatures, not just insects, but, squirrels and dogs and any kind of animal. And I became an entomologist because when I went to college, I found out that most of the animals on Earth are insects. So 80% of the creatures that we have named so far are insects. That's 8 out of 10 if you have like 10 little creatures, 8 of them are insects. And so we've named about 1 million of them. And we think there's probably 30 million more species that we have not named yet. And so when I found out that most creatures are insects, I figured if I learned about them, I'd be learning about the most in one place. So I figured it was economical to learn about insects. So that's how I became an entomologist.
80% of all animals on Earth. That is amazing. So the odds are that if it's an animal on Earth, it's an insect. That's amazing.
Life on Earth, yes, it's an insect.
Life
yes.
on Earth. That's so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So to become an entomologist, you had to study them, and I understand you also did some field work, which doesn't have to take place in an actual field, but can.
And it did for me.
Yes,
so I studied insects when I was at NC State University getting my undergraduate degree. I worked in a lab, and I also took classes where people taught me about how to identify bugs and what good bugs do in the world, bad bugs, just what bugs are doing out there. And then I went to graduate school where I studied bees in watermelon fields. I studied native bees and honeybees. Honeybees are not native to the United States, but we have lots of bees that are. In North Carolina, we have more than 500 native bee species doing all kinds of wonderful things for us. So I studied those there. And then I came back here for my PhD, and I studied ants. I studied ants in an office park in Morrisville. I would sit out in that office park and watch the ants crawl up trees and under things. And I studied them in forests and other places too. But you really don't have to go far to study insects.
So you don't have to travel to the jungles of other continents or other.
No, you don't have to leave your house, really. I mean, and that's why it's such a wonderful time for all of us to become entomologists.
Do you have any tips for any aspiring entomologists who might be viewing?
Yes, I do. And can we talk a little bit about what's going on in your house before we? But just, is that okay? Okay. So recently, recent research has shown that some guys came and ladies and people just came to people's houses and surveyed how many insects were living and bugs were living in your house in this area. And they found that most homes have more than 100 species of insects. So species is is one type. So like a human is a species, a dog is a species. So there's 100 different types of insects living in the average house in this area. And they found up to 200 species living in these homes. So that means that each of us right now, if we're living in our houses, will find an abundance of life that we can watch and pay attention to. And it's not just roaches and things that people don't really particularly like living in their house. There are all kinds of wonderful, neat things that are making your home this delightful ecosystem that you can walk around and study. There are little wasps that lay eggs on cockroach cases in your house. There are little lacewing babies that go up to termites and they will expel gas in their face. And the gas is so noxious that they pass out, and then they come over and they eat them. The researchers call it a toxic fart, but I'll let you call it whatever you want to. I mean, this is happening in your house right now, and that's just inside your house. Inside your yard, we have no idea what's going on out there. There's so many creatures out there that have never even been identified in our yards. And so we right now, you and me and all of you, can go outside and make a discovery today if we wanted to, or we could just watch, because insects are always doing something. They're always there, and there's always something surprising that's happening with them. So right now, since many of us are at home, and we probably will be at home for at least a few more weeks, is a perfect time to get to know the creatures that you're living with.
That is so much fun. So I didn't realize that there was so much going on inside of our own houses. I know that I did capture a small bug friend for us to maybe examine a little bit later in our lab. But before we get to our project that we're going to be doing together today, I wanted to ask just a few viewer questions. Okay. So we had someone send us a picture, and I'm going to ask Max to put that picture up here on the screen. Beautiful. So we have this beautiful picture that was sent in to us by Raina and Michelle, and they say, we were out and about yesterday and found this cool beauty. We think it is some sort of cocoon. It had a hole in the top as if something had emerged, but a small spider was in the process of crawling inside, so we chose to leave things be and not investigate. The tree, a small sapling from which the ornament is hung, it looks to be a beech tree. Do you have any ideas for us about what this might be, Dr. Eleanor?
Yes, it's a cocoon of one of our many species of giant silkworm moths. We have some really beautiful moths that live here. We have Luna moths and Cecropia moths and a moth called Polyphemus, and they all build these beautiful silken cocoons that they wrap in leaves sometimes to protect them and hide them. And then they pupate in those cocoons. They turn into a pupa, and then they hope that they will emerge in the next season as a full moth, because the little caterpillars who's building the cocoon, you know. And so what happened with this one with the hole in the top is, my guess is that it did emerge and that it's a moth, but other things can happen too, because there are creatures that live here that like to eat these helpless fat chicken nuggets, you know, these big old juicy defenseless things that are wrapped up in silk for them. So there's a type of wasp, for example, called an ichneumon wasp, and she'll lay an egg inside the cocoon, and her baby will eat the pupa, and then that wasp will emerge instead of the moth. So that may have happened as well. We don't know. And then once they emerge, lots of different creatures love to live in little cavities, and that's a perfect cavity. It's waterproof and it's dark and it's pretty camouflaged and safe. So the spider was probably making it its home. Ants do that. Many other different creatures will move into something once something moves out. That's a great find. If she cuts it open with some scissors, she'll probably see the last molt before the moth emerged.
That's really neat. I also, I guess maybe I have seen that before, where you have insects that are reusing things that other insects have built. That's so, so cool.
I wouldn't open one if it doesn't have a hole in it, because it probably has not emerged. Well, it hasn't emerged yet.
That's really good advice. I have another question here from Lael about, let's see, let's do this one. How do insects communicate with each other?
Oh, that's a great question, because you don't see them sitting around talking to each other all day. But insects actually each have some very interesting languages that they use to communicate with each other. They use sound, they use sight, and they can use smell and touch. So some insects, you know, use sound, like crickets and cicadas that you hear at night, and grasshoppers. You can hear them making sounds. And some sounds we can't hear. They're ants that will drum on leaves and stuff. So they can talk to each other that way. With sight, you know, fireflies, for example, flash, and they can talk to each other that way. We have almost 20 species of fireflies here in North Carolina, and each one has its own flash pattern. And so they use that flash, Morse code flash, across the sky to talk to each other. And then they can also communicate, and a lot of them communicate using chemicals. And so with chemicals, they can, like moths will release a chemical into the air, and then moths of that species can smell that one chemical. A lot of the things that insects use to talk to each other, we can't detect. So they will be talking to each other with chemicals, and we can't smell the chemicals. And so it's completely invisible and silent to us. We have no idea how they're doing it, but we can crack the code with machines. Honeybee alarm pheromone smells just like fake bananas. And so sometimes the signals kind of get crossed that way. Honeybees also have another pheromone that they use to calm the hive down and say, hey, we're here. This is us. You're safe. And that smells like lemon balm. It's this sweet, soft smell. And so some of the things we can pick up on with insects, and some of the things are completely beyond our capabilities of smelling or seeing.
That is so amazing that there's all of these conversations going on, but that sometimes we can tap into them. I didn't know that
Oh,
about
it's wonderful. The whole world is talking, and sometimes we're not invited to that party.
but we can listen in sometimes.
You can, and you can watch the ants talk to each other. You see them touching their antennae onto each other's heads, and they're asking each other, "Are you my sister?" Or they may be asking, "May I have something to eat?" Or they may be saying, "Are you scared?" They can talk to each other with chemicals, and even if we can't tell what they're saying exactly, we can watch their behaviors and guess at what the conversations are going on.
That's so wonderful. Speaking of ants, Hope had a really good question about how and what does an ant eat? We'll answer this question and then we'll get to our project, and we'll still talk a little bit more about some of the amazing knowledge you have in some of these great questions, but let's do that one first.
Okay. So ants eat, and that is a great question. So ants eat a bunch of stuff. What they mostly like is protein and sugar and water. Now, some ants like protein more than other ants do. And protein is like meat. So fire ants, for example, they'll eat some sugar and but they like protein. So a lot of times they will go and they'll pick up like dead insects, for example, or if you dropped a hot dog on the ground, a fire ant would come and pick it up. Other ants mostly like sugar. So odorous house ants, those little black ants that live on your kitchen counter that smell like blue cheese, if you crush them, they like sugar. So if you dropped your drink, your lemonade on the ground, they would come and lap it up. So they eat different things and they eat different combinations of things, and some have preferences for one over another. And it's actually kind of fun to test out to see what kind of ants you have in your yard, because you can put out a protein like your lunch meat, or a sugar like some jelly, and you can see who comes to the different baits. And you will see that one type of ant may group at one bait and another type of ant may group at the other bait, because they like to eat different things.
That's so neat, and I think we're going to learn a little bit more about exactly ants do that, and learn a little more tips about perhaps observing them do that a little later. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about kind of the project that we're going to be doing together. And once we get that started, we can answer some more questions. I just want to make sure we have time to get everything in today. There's just so much cool stuff to talk about in so little time.
World of bugs.
It's a fascinating world. So we were talking about how entomologists are people who study bugs, but sometimes bugs are really fast and they can be really small. So we were talking about building something that might be able to help us see an insect. And what is that called in this case?
Spy pod. Are you talking about our spy pod?
Yes.
Yes.
So we're going to be building a spy pod. And is this something that real entomologists use in the field, professional ones?
I think they do. I've never used one because I didn't know about them until after I had finished all of my field work. But I think that arachnologists, or people who study spiders, I think that they use these often, and they're very useful. Since I discovered it, I use mine all the time.
So we're going to build together a spy pod. I know that Dr. Eleanor has some of her supplies. Are any of you guys at home going to be able to build a spy pot along with us, do you think? Just let us know in the chat. We just want to know so that we can kind of do it along with you. We have at least 2 people. Oh, 3. Oh, a bunch. That's so great, you guys. Well, that's wonderful.
Hooray!
Let's go ahead and we'll get started with that. Then we'll talk a little bit. We'll do a few more questions if we have time. So what we need, for starters, is we need some sort of cup. Now I have like this big plastic cup. Dr. Eleanor has 2 paper cups. We need at least 2, right? I have one because I started cutting my other one. We need 2 cups. We need some scissors.
I got a knife.
Since you're an adult, handling a knife sounds fine to me.
Okay. Thank you.
I know you needed permission there.
Yeah.
I've also got a little bit of plastic wrap here. And it's also helpful to have either a rubber band, or I have some tape. I only had really small rubber bands with me today, so I have some tape.
I have a hair rubber band.
Oh, perfect. That could work too. I do have one of those. The other thing is either a folded up piece of paper towel, a cotton ball, or a piece of styrofoam, something that's kind of small and soft. What I have here is just like a little cotton pad. So I'm going to be using that today, and we'll talk about what that will be used for. You have cotton balls.
Does it have to be see-through? The plastic does have to be see-through.
So the plastic does. The cup does not have to be see-through.
The cup does not have to be see-through. No.
That's a great point. So the first thing we want to do is, right, we have our 2 cups. One of them, we're going to cut the bottom out of them, right? Whatever kind of cup you have. I'm going to go ahead and continue snipping mine. Maybe we'll go to my experiment can here so you guys can see a little bit closer. Here's my experiment can. So I've started cutting. Here's my tip too, is especially if you're cutting something where there's no kind of edge to start with, right, is poking a hole with your scissors and then cutting yourself a little notch so that your scissors have a place to start, right? So I'm going to cut my bottom out of the cup here. I know mine's not going to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect, right?
Right.
Perfect. All right. We're not perfect.
While you cut, can I answer a couple of these questions?
That's a great idea. Yeah, go ahead and you can.
Well, one question was, do bugs live in the water? And yes, many bugs live in the water. And we actually use our understanding of which bugs can live in the water to see how healthy a stream is. The more bugs that are living in there, the healthier the stream usually is. One question was, why do praying mantises move side to side? And it's because they want to look like leaves. They're very sneaky assassins. And so what they're doing is they're walking around trying to look like a leaf blowing in the wind so that you might not notice that it's there, so it can sneak up on you and eat you. But if you're a fly.
What a good disguise. I think a lot of times it's harder to see something moving than something that's still.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got our cup. I cut the bottom out of it, and you've got the bottom taken out of yours as well. Now we're going to take our other cup. And what we are going to do is we are going to put our cotton ball or our cotton pad or our paper towel or whatever it is onto the top of this cup. Now, I did this with another one. I glued it in place. I think you don't have to glue it, right? But you can.
I don't glue it.
So you don't glue yours. Okay. I did go ahead and glue mine just because I knew I was going to be moving it around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I glued my bit of cotton stuff to the top here. So we have one bottom of our cup that's taken out. We have one top of our cup that's covered with something soft. So once we've got that step, and it's okay if we just put it on top of it instead of glue, once we've got that step, we're going to take our cup that has the top cut off, and we're going to cover it with our plastic wrap. We're going to go ahead and take oh, that's right, the bottom that's been cut out. It's the top, depending on which way you have it. We're going to take the smaller end and put our plastic wrap on top of it. That's where the tape comes in, or your rubber band. I'm just going to go ahead and tape this in place so it's nice and secure.
While you do that, I'll answer this question. Do all bugs have the same amount of legs? Yes, all bugs have 6 legs, but some bugs' legs are a little bit different looking than other bugs. For example, caterpillars, they have 6 real legs, and then they have a whole bunch of fake legs in the back that are basically just grippers. So bugs are supposed to all have 6 legs. And yes, insects can talk to other insects.
So if they're a true insect, they have 6 legs. That's really cool.
Spiders have 8 legs. They're not insects.
All right, so you've got right now 2 pieces that will become your spy pot. You've got your one with sort of a saran wrap or your plastic wrap drum. Here, flexible membrane there. And then you've got one that has something soft on the bottom of it. Because what you will do with your spy pot is you'll kind of stack them together like this. So you have this, the clear part on top, and you would put your insect in here, and then you would sort of gently press it into place using that really soft bottom part. Because we were saying they can be really fast, they can be small, hard to see, hard to photograph. So this is something that helps keep them still. And I'm going to test my spy pot with a little spider that I caught earlier. I'm gonna go ahead and grab this guy here. He's a little hard to see, or she, I'm never totally sure. This insect is a little hard to see. I'm gonna kind of put it into my cup that has the clear part in it, and then I'm going to kind of seal it in. There we go. So there is my little spider that I caught. Let's see if our camera will focus. So I'm not squishing this insect, right, Dr. Eleanor?
Right. That's why you have the cotton on there. The question is, will the spy pot kill your insect? And no, it shouldn't kill your insect if you're gentle. You just push it up there. You don't want to squish it. You just push it up gently onto there, and that'll help it to stay still while you look at it. That's a great question.
That is a good question, and it's good to be sure that we're not going to be harming any of the insects that we are observing, or the bugs that we are observing, right? You can see that mine is still kind of crawling around in here. This one doesn't have a really tight seal, but not only is there something soft on the bottom of one cup, your kind of seal of plastic wrap is flexible, so it's not going to be anything that's crushing this animal. So I'm going to put that aside and show you guys just really quickly before we head out here, just some other things I made some little spy pots out of. I made one out of a, this is one that I made out of a kind of a paper towel tube, or a toilet paper tube. I had to cut one of my edges to make it small enough to fit inside of it, right? I needed one to be able to fit inside the other, and to do that I had to cut it in half and fold it over and tape it a little bit, because otherwise, if I just cut out the paper towel tube, they wouldn't fit inside of each other. But I did the same thing. I just put a little bit of that cotton there. I put some plastic wrap there, and now I have a small one that I can use. If I want to go even smaller, this is a plastic syringe that I took the seal off of. I took the seal off so there wouldn't be too much air pressure, and I also cut off the kind of a little pointy part there. So I sealed it with plastic wrap, and now I have this little stopper that I can move in and out and look at my insect that I have caught. So it doesn't have to be a cup. It doesn't have to be any of the materials that we have used today exactly, right? You guys can see what works best for you. We want to encourage you guys to just kind of test it out, see what works. I want to see if we can, in just the moment we have left here, I wanted to, of course, thank Dr. Eleanor for her time here. Thank you so much for answering those questions, for having such amazing kind of insight to share with us. This is not the last time we're going to see Dr. Eleanor, because in our closing notes here, I want to announce something really exciting here. Starting next week, we are kicking off our summer bug out celebration. This is our first ever virtual event that invites all of you to explore the world of bugs and get to know your invertebrate neighbors. So for the next 4 weeks, we will have special bug-related labs at home so that you can get the jump on our weekly bug out challenges. These creative challenges will go out on the museum's social media, and your entry will put you in a drawing for fabulous prizes each week. Our friend Dr. Eleanor will continue to share expert entomologist tips through this event in her awesome 1-minute bug hunt videos, which we will release on the museum's YouTube channel. We'll kind of highlight them each week of the Bug Out Summer Celebration. Be sure to check those out because those are really helpful. I also thought they were really funny. I liked those a lot. That's a great question. They are kind of bug-related prizes. I know some of them include one of them includes one of Dr. Eleanor's books, which is really cool. We've got just some other stuff that will kind of tell you a little bit more about. Sure. Yes, we'll email out some more of that information. We'll also have more information to come on our social media about the summer bug out event, as well as the member tip emails and the Life at Science at Home emails. So that's going to be starting next week, next Wednesday, so same day as today. We'll kick off our special summer bug out event. And I hope that you all will join me for the Lab at Home again, the same time, same day next week, Wednesday at 2 o'clock, where we are going to be making a different kind of device that will help you not just look at insects, but also to catch them. So thank you all so much for being here with me today. I know we ran a few minutes over. Thank you so much. I hope that you guys can show us some of the cool spy pots that you made on social media by tagging #LabAtHome. We would love to check that out. Thank you so much, my friends. We'll go ahead and end our webinar here. Thank you again to Dr. Eleanor for being here. It was so fun to talk to everyone.